What is up, Internet? Strap on the gloves, whip out your stands, and power up over 9,000. The battle is about to begin on this episode of the Otaku Remix. What is up, people? My name is Brando, and welcome to the Otaku Remix podcast. Today, I am joined by a good friend of mine, the great sage of Dota 2, fellow anime nerd, good friend, Scott Dean. Scott, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. And today, me and Scott are going to be talking about anime, but we're going to be talking about a specific aspect about anime that we were kind of jiving about recently. Me and him, we jive a lot about a lot of things. UFC, Star Wars, a bunch of nerdy stuff. But we were talking about anime, and we were talking about one of the most appealing aspects to so many people, kind of like the face value of shonen. We're talking about action, fight scenes, hype moments, the visceral nature of anime that kind of draws so many people in its unique style. We just kind of want to get into that, break it down, and just kind of talk about what we love about it and what you might love about it. So I think the first thing that we should start getting a distinction of is, what do we mean by, well, not what we mean by action, but we were talking about before we began, the distinction between action scenes and fight scenes, because they commingle, but they're not mutually exclusive terms. So
Yeah, you can you can have action without any kind of fight taking place. Usually, if it's some kind of car chase, like a chase, chase, or
a chase is an action scene. Yeah. Initial D scenes those are almost like fight scenes. Those are like battle scenes because they're between two parties. But yeah, I know what you mean. Ambiguous parties, they're more about, when I think about it, like bombast and like spectacle.
Exactly.
The metaphor I think we were talking about that I used before it was like Jackie Chan fights, as opposed to Bruce Lee fights. Mm-hmm. Jackie Chan just he beats up a bazillion people. He's using ladders. He's flying around. He's jumping on buildings. And then there's Bruce Lee, who's intimately fighting in Way of the Dragon against Chuck Norris or like anybody who he's really fought. So there's like that singular opponent where he has those iconic fights. He has those action scenes too, where
he takes out like about 30 people in Enter the Dragon.
Exactly.
When he switches from weapon to weapon to weapon. Finishing with the nunchucks.
So in anime, of course, there's tons of comparisons, and it's interesting to see how they mix. Mm-hmm. I was talking to Plural, actually, and we were thinking about doing a few different ideas for podcasts. We were talking about Code Geass, and I kind of like harassed him yesterday about maybe doing one, but like there are some interesting fight scenes, battle scenes in Code Geass, and they're kind of an amalgamation of the two. Mm-hmm. I would say they're probably closer to action scenes, but have you seen Code Geass?
I haven't. It's kind of one that's like been on my list. Like I've seen it pop up on a bunch of different things that like either talk about different scenes and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure I've had like the big twist ruined.
Well, but it's a 10-year anime. Like, it's literally impossible like to avoid that kind of that stuff. But specifically, I'm just talking about some of the scenes in the first season. Mm-hmm. Just like paraphrasing the plot. It's tactical. Have you like played Advanced Wars or like tactics for like Final Fantasy Tactics Advance and all that? It's like it's very reminiscent of that feel. Mm-hmm. You might like it if you're into those. The main character Lelouch, is like a very tactical character. He loves war, not loves war, but is very efficient at it. And so he's like in a battle where he's fighting on Mount Fuji with a bunch of mechs on his side versus the mechs on the Britannian enemy side. And the whole tension of the actions in those scenes is, sure, he's fighting against an enemy general, but it kind of feels more like an action scene where he's just navigating the challenge of being overwhelmed by numbers, but he uses the terrain to his advantage. He explodes the Mount Fuji's got like a volcano inside of it, which he erupts. It's very very sneaky and interesting. And those are the interesting elements of fights. There's two appeals to fights typically, and action in general. There's with fighting in particular, with the two parties involved, there's like two main narratives. Yeah. There's like a technical side to it, where it's just like the complexity and nuanced physical nature of what's happening is probably more of the appeal, and then there's the like emotional side to it, like the internal side of it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like one of the things that like really makes a good scene, like I always think like really good action scenes either come from crazy over the top fights, like something that you'll get in like Dragon Ball Super. Very rarely do you have emotional attachments to characters. Whereas then if you're watching something like Full Metal Alchemist,
that's an interesting comparison.
The fight scenes in that they're really well choreographed and stuff like that. But you care so much because you have such a connection.
There's a lot more electricity, a lot more like kinetic energy in a Dragon Ball fight. Super and all that. I know we both are like fond of it, but I feel like for me, I'm like openly aware of bias. Like I know that I don't feel as much for Super as I do for Z, and then subsequently even Dragon Ball original. I was talking to, I don't know if it was about you. I think it would have been to Andre when the last time we met. But I told him because he'd never seen any Dragon Ball.
Yeah, I haven't seen.
I'm pretty sure.
Like I started watching the original Dragon Ball, but it was like in like my early teens.
It was probably you.
Yeah, it was like early teen years. So it was like I was fully invested in Z already.
Yeah.
So trying to watch Dragon Ball felt like a step back.
It can be like
you
that.
Can't. But the thing is, it was because I didn't appreciate story at the time.
Yeah. In my youth, I'm like, I just want to see laser beams, and stuff like that.
Give me 10 episodes of Goku screaming, powering up,
and it's more appealing. But back to where we were, like in the comparison to Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah,
there's some like I think the best that kind of have that element of action are the ones that can meld the two elements together and do them both successfully, like doing a good emotional story while having a technical aspect to it. And Full Metal Alchemist has tons of those. I really thinking off the top of my head, the first scene that's coming to my mind for some reason is Wrath versus Greed. The motivations are very blurry. Like Greed is like very,
and you literally have two villains going against each other, two characters that you wouldn't think that like you would feel attachment to.
I know, and like the personal stakes in it. Yeah, that's interesting. Like plot wise, there's a lot of contrivances there.
Yeah,
but it's very entertaining. And I feel like the most entertaining parts of that maybe when you're entertained in a fight. Like I feel like when you reach that point of engagement, you know that you're being able to read the characters, like the communication between the characters physically, without having to like have them explain like I'm going to punch him because I feel this certain way. Like you understand. I was thinking about My Hero, so I did my last podcast. My first one was the My Hero one.
That's what I was gonna say. My Hero is an example. Like the fight sequences and action sequences in Full Metal are really good.
Yeah,
the ones in My Hero are a whole different ballgame, and at the same time, you have that emotional weight. I mean, I literally like teared up and cried the first like several times in that show.
Which one? Which way?
Tons of them.
This is great. I love this.
I mean, the first one that I can remember is the All Might versus Nomu.
Okay,
fight.
So
first off, like super inspirational things.
Oh, for sure.
Always get me every time I watch the Rocky. Doesn't matter how many times I've seen it. Any of the Rocky movies.
Pointing to Rocky poster now in the room, just saying. Keep going.
Yes, any of the Rocky movies, right? Seen them 100 times.
We're Philadelphians too. We're painfully biased. Painfully.
So
continue.
But doesn't matter. As soon as I'm watching them, waterworks happen. Like
it's a beautifully touching movie. And especially the first one.
Absolutely.
And all of them except for 5. But well, not 5. Did I mean 5? Yeah, I meant 5.
You meant 5.
I meant 5, yeah.
Because 4 he wins the Cold War. 5 is the one where it's like, why was this movie made?
Yeah.
And then
6 is great. I don't give a fuck.
I had never seen it up until recently.
It's fantastic.
Because, I heard when it came out, I heard very mixed things. And then as time went on, all I heard was super positive things, and I just never really had the drive to watch it. And then I bought all of the Rocky movies because
there's probably a set somewhere.
I bought them all digitally.
Oh, fantastic!
I've pretty much shifted to digital everything because I don't like having to carry things with me. So
I mean, you're saving trees and probably a lot of time, and storage space.
But getting back to those emotional moments, and it doesn't hurt that I have a huge affinity for the Incredible Hulk. So characters that are similar to him.
You're wearing the appropriate shirt today, too. Not to metagame again. You can't see any of these things I'm blurting out, but Incredible Hulk shirt. Continue.
Yeah. But characters who mirror that dynamic, I really end up liking. It's almost always the super strong guy. Like a bunch of my friends, whenever a game comes out, they'll be able to pick out the character that I'm going to play, even if I haven't seen.
Yeah.
Any of the characters or anything. But it, I don't know what it is that makes me connect with them, but so a character like All Might, I've loved since the beginning. It doesn't hurt the fact that he's hilarious too.
Yeah. Your ability to empathize with him is giving you that emotional charge. It immediately connects to it. I talk to I'm on tilt with My Hero right now, so it's all painfully fresh. I don't want to sound like I'm just gonna harp on My Hero, but I'm probably just about to harp on My Hero. So that fight with Nomu, I broke it down, and it's there's a great. That's how I broke it down in that podcast, which you should go check out, even though I'm not super proud of it. But it was the emotional and technical narrative of that fight is the emotional side of it kind of dominates the fight, because while it's like a super fun brawl, the circumstances between like Nomu, who's like this genetic freak that's like designed to kill All Might, and All Might who's weakening, but you want him to you wonder how long he's going to be able to be that pillar for everybody, but he's there to prove. The whole fight revolves around him proving to himself that he can be, and still for a little bit longer.
The part that takes it over the edge, at least for me, is the fact that you see the fight from the perspective of both all of the people who don't know about
the circumstances,
his weakened state. So they're all thinking, like,
he's got
it. Of course he's gonna get it. But then it keeps flashing to Midoriya, who's like, oh my god, there's no way he's going to do this.
Like he's fucked. I love that element up until the last minute. Like right up until the moment where everybody discovers, spoiler, I'm sorry. But season 3 spoilers, that All Might, everyone in the world discovers All Might's true form. His fight with All for One.
Which, like, the Nomu episode probably was my favorite fight for like the longest time.
Up until
that All for One fight. Because that All for One fight, like,
it's fantastic.
The United States of Smash. I was just like the whole episode, tears just flowing down my face.
Yeah, it was super, super great. Not only because it was fucking super kinetic. God,
the animation,
the animation for My Hero. I mean, let's just keep going. I don't give a fuck. Is like Studio Bones is a fucking great job.
Absolutely,
they're super on point with that stuff. The punch when United States of Smash goes through it, like whips up a tornado. Like it's ridiculous.
Like you get, I mean, before it, like as he's closing his fist, you get the steam lines that all like surge out of it and stuff. Like
it's these kind of visual metaphors and like the way the anime kind of portrays the emotional weight of something that just kind of really pushed them over. But going back into how it can communicate like a dialogue and like sticking with My Hero because it's so fresh. Those fights between Deku and Todoroki in the second season during the tournament section of the summer festival, and the same thing with his fight with Bakugo, round 2. Those are fantastic examples of ways that like characters communicate through fights. And there's like a very honest dialogue. The fight with Todoroki dealing with that like father trauma with the flame power, kind of associating it as like a proxy for his dad, and the fight itself, it's choreographed in a way that kind of works towards it, because it's like it's interesting. I'm like kind of breaking it down now, like in my head, and so you think about like just previously, like in the cavalry battle in that same season, where there are heroes just teaming up, flying over, doing very creative things. That fight, it just amounts to ice wave flick.
It's
ice
literally
wave, flick. Like, it's so straightforward.
I saw so many people talking about how that was the best fight in My Hero, and I was like, emotionally speaking, that was pretty awesome. I was like, but in terms of like the actual fight,
it's literally just flick ice, and it's purposeful and it's interesting the way it all communicates their struggle. It's like a butting heads thing where Todoroki's, I will use ice only to beat this dude to prove my dad wrong. Midoriya, I will prove that I am good enough to be All Might's successor, and that you should open up your fucking.
You need to use 100%, not 50%.
Yeah, exactly. And it's super awesome. And then fast forward to the next fight with Bakugo versus Midoriya, very different element from their first conflict, where it's like just Midoriya opening up for the first time in that exercise. And this one's more of like an affirmation, for Deku anyway. For Bakugo, he's there to really exercise some demons. He's there to learn the truth. He's there about Deku. He's there to vent about feeling like he was responsible for All Might being losing all of his power. He's there to kind of like deal with the feelings that he has towards Deku anyway, because like he's the rival character, but we never really get to hear his point of view.
I definitely didn't see that coming. That he felt responsible for All Might. Like, I should have seen it.
Yeah, because he's just this really paragon fucking pride dude. Like, just through and through.
He's definitely renegade for life.
Yeah, like really renegade for life. And it's like, to have that iota of emotional sensitivity,
you never see it, and then all of a sudden, like, it just all spills over,
and then it's there, and it's super meaningful because of it. And like, it's those sort of moments that make the fight, that shows the fights can have that, like, or at least the setups for the conflicts can have that complexity to it, even that, and like through the fight they can work it out. So
two other fights that I was just thinking about from my favorite anime, Berserk, that show you that really intimate connection. The first one that I was thinking is the first time Guts meets Zod the Immortal. because
he's the Balrog looking guy.
He looks like Akuma, and then he turns into Balrog.
Yeah.
So
that's a fantastic fight.
Yeah. So like
very gristly.
Yeah, like when it starts off, Zod just slaughtered the majority of Guts's raiders.
Yeah.
And Guts is like, all right, well, enough of this. I'm gonna go meet this guy who is slaughtering all my men, and he just gets handled at the start of it.
It's the first time you really see, besides with this fight with Griffith.
Yeah, the first fight with Griffith.
Him getting like handled like this.
I mean, prior to this, he's just been literally walking through armies on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And then they clash, and then when Guts's realization is the fact that our swords are at least equal. Like, he is stronger than me, he's faster than me.
But the material is there.
But our swords
are
at least equal. So he decides to, just in typical him fashion, bets it all on one last swing, and he ends up cutting through Zod's sword.
Yeah.
And then Zod's like, lulz? Well, that's fine. I'll just go demon form.
That's not terribly unlike his fight with Bazuso either, where he's like, I see that.
Oh, it's the same.
That was more tactical because he could see the chink.
Yeah, he knew that he cracked. He knew that he cracked the axe.
Yeah. So he's like, I can win via this method.
I never like paired those two together, but you're very right.
It's just so close. Him swinging through a weapon twice. I was just like, makes sense, I guess.
But because then like that fight grows, and then Griffith shows up, and then he after Zod transforms, he beats Guts to the point where he
needs to be
move.
Yeah.
And he takes his last bit of energy, and he ends up cutting off Zod's arm, and Griffith cuts the tendons in his other arm, and they together not even take him down, they delay him for a minute before Zod sees the bayonet and flies off. The other fight is the second encounter between Guts and Griffith, where there's literally no words exchanged.
Yeah, those are the best.
Like you get the way it's done, like it keeps going to all the other characters, and you hear like Casca say something, you hear Judo say something, and like then it goes into Griffith's head, and it's one of the first times you actually get to see the inner workings of Griffith's head before the fight, and he's like analyzing everything and how he's gonna parry, and he's actually concerned, like, if I miss by any degree, I will kill him.
Yeah.
And then he's like, doesn't matter. If he doesn't fight for me, he won't fight for anybody. And you never hear anything from Guts. Like, no anything. And spoilers, once again, for a 10, 20-year-old anime.
Yeah.
When they actually go to swing, Guts cuts right through his sword.
He's a champ at breaking weapons.
Yeah, he really is. He really is. Like, later on. And
this really just makes him seem like a one-trick pony. Like,
I mean,
he wins every fight.
It's once again, like, that's going back to the Hulk thing. That was what made me fall in love with him, was his raw determination. And the fact, like, in most things, you see somebody, like, is just crazy strong, and you just roll with it because anime.
Yeah.
In that, like, when Griffith gets his knighthood, it shows the entire Band of the Hawk at a ceremony.
Yeah.
And they're like, where's Guts? And then it just cuts away, and he's just standing there with his sword, and he has logs tied onto it. And he's like, 198, 199. He's doing it with one hand, and when he gets to 200, he puts the sword in the other arm and goes one. And it's like, oh, that's why he's so strong. That makes sense.
Despite his it's not really a one-dimensional nature, but like he's very focused character. Like,
that show, like, as great as, like, as much as I love the action, like, specifically in the manga, like, the artwork is out of this world, and I love the action in that. Yeah. But what keeps me coming back is the characters. That's one of those shows where, like, from the outside, like, everybody that I've shown it to and been like, yo, you should check this out. Yeah. They all just keep thinking, like, oh, it's just going to be some big dude with a sword just slashing through everything. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like, halfway through, they're like, well, wait, why do I have the feels? Exactly. And then at the end of the, the Golden Age arc, when they're like, what just happened?
It's interesting. That's why action is always a fun element that plays into the marketing and the mystique of anime. Yeah. Because it looks like there's these, like, hyper fucking tension moments consistently. Yeah. And it's not. Like, I mean, it is for some material. Like, if you have something like Dragon Ball Z that literally revolves around the combat for everything, then But most of the times there is nuance in between everything. Most of the time. And the way that it's executed is always interesting.
Well, it's kind of like another show that's, on the outside, a lot of people who see, either ads for it or something is Attack on Titan. Like, you would look at that show and just think that it's a ton of action. Yeah. But really, there's a ton of intrigue, and that's one of the reasons why it seemed like a lot of people didn't like season 2 compared to season 1, and I was like, why? Like,
I should really give that a second chance. And by second chance, I mean just a chance. I only watched 4 episodes of it, and then I stopped.
See, to me, like, I actually found it like before it blew up. I found it, and that was because like I'm a huge Godzilla fan too. So I would like, and it came up in a Godzilla group that I'm in, and I was like,
makes sense.
Oh, look at this! I was like, this looks really cool, and I ended up catching up. Like the first season hadn't finished yet, so I caught up with it, and the action and stuff is cool. But what really pulled me in was the mystery. Like there's so much mystery in it. And then by the end of the first season, it seems like they start answering questions, but every time they answer one, they raise 3 more.
Yeah.
So it's like you just keep having more and more questions.
I keep hearing that it has this kind of this depth of plot and like the story and in general, I felt like I was a dick when I dismissed it because when I saw it, when you hear people describe video games today and like gaming journalism as like Dark Soulsian, like I would call it like it's Berserk light. I watch like Goblin Slayer, I read Goblin Slayer, and like it's Berserk light, or like anything that has an edge, or like Claymore, it's female Berserk. You know, like I'm like you use that as a synonymous term. Berserk is my like silver bullet of like just fucking labeling shit in anime with that kind of dark tonality, and I really should just go back to it because not only have I had so many friends just fucking throw Attack on Titan in front of me, like, here, watch this scene, like throw it on my phone. And I watched some really cool UFC fights between these 2 Titans and it looks like they're fucking arm barring each other and shit. I'm like, this looks dope. But then I think about it in my head, I'm like, nah, it's probably not as good as Berserk, but it probably is still good enough to watch. Like,
yeah, it's definitely good. Like to me, like it's weird like how I rate anime in my head, right? Because I kept like a top 3 for the longest time. And it was like Berserk, Hellsing, which became Hellsing Ultimate, like as soon as they put that out.
Got the chance.
And then Full Metal Alchemist, which became Brotherhood.
Yeah.
It's literally the exact same thing as
but better.
Hellsing. Yeah. It was the same thing as Hellsing. Like Hellsing came out and the anime the anime passed the manga and they had to write some finish, which
they were both similar situations where they had to really go back and recreate the story as it was intended.
Full Metal actually did a decent job with that. Like the original series, like how they wrote it, I was like, oh, that was neat. And it wasn't like after I saw Brotherhood and I was like, oh, I like this one better. But that other one, still not bad.
Fun fact that the Brotherhood is animated by the same studio that does My Hero on the regular Studio Bones.
Doesn't surprise me. Like it's a combination of like the styles that they switch to when they go to action scenes.
I feel like they did Hellsing too. That can't be an actual coincidence, but I really feel like they might. I'm Googling Studio Bones right now, but you continue.
It's very possible. Because like after you mention it, like I'm thinking because they use a lot of dark lineage in their outlines and stuff for highlighting when they kind of switch to action scenes that they're trying to over stylize. But yeah, like I kept a top 3 and now it's like harder and harder for me to like keep up with that. But oddly enough, Dragon Ball Z, I never put anywhere in there, and I was just like, well, it's just kind of in its own like league.
It has a very
it's untouchable in my head because it was really the introduction for me to anime.
Dragon Ball as like that representative of action in anime, it will always have a unique place. It did so many things well, and it had better writing than you'd think, but I feel like it was a matter of the creator he's gone on multiple records, Akira Toriyama, saying like, I'm making this up as I go along. And it's not a myth. Like he was making up as he go along. He didn't intend for Goku to be an alien, like the Saiyans to be aliens. He didn't even intend for it to be a battle thing. Like when he started a Dragon Ball, it was a gag manga. And then when he started adding those elements of fighting, and there was that tonality shift in Shonen Jump, like between the 80s and the 90s, where you have like the 80s that had like Fists of the North Star and all that sort of like hyper masculine stuff, and then into the 90s where it started to get a little bit more humorous, and then like it shaped up into its form of like Dragon Ball and JoJo and whatever else kind of came out of the 90s. JoJo was a little bit more of the 80s, but still.
I mean, it changes from season to season with JoJo. Like, you watch like the first 2 seasons and you're like, oh man, this is a really 80s.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into JoJo in a second for sure. But Dragon Ball, like my impression of it as its like example of action is that it really leans one way. It starts in an emotional place and ends in a very technical place. The fights are it's not even because the fights are more subdued and grounded in the beginning, but like they have a lot more meaning. Like the fight between Vegeta and Goku the first time in the Saiyan saga has so much weight.
Yeah.
You can really see, and the whole persona of Vegeta was very concise. He's a prince. He like the same as Goku, but like a Nega Goku, a guy who's not a low class warrior, a guy who stands above everybody else, and like
he's better than everybody, and he knows it.
Yeah, he was a very antithesis to Goku, who just loves everybody, but just pursues fighting for the joy of it, whereas like he's like an unyielding conqueror sort of character. And there was a fun dichotomy there. And then as you get to the end where you're fighting Boo, which is a fucking stick of gum that can become anything. Like,
oh, I mean, it's the same as like I have had discussions with people about like lightsaber fighting and what was better, like the original trilogy versus
what you prefer. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And like a lot, because I hear a lot of people say they prefer the prequel one because it's very flashy.
So here I know what you're gonna say. And I don't mean to cut you off. I'm just going to preface that I do prefer the prequels to the original trilogy. Continue.
So, but like the way that I look at it, like all of the lightsaber fights that happen in the original trilogy all hold like tons of emotional meaning.
Way more than the prequels.
Yeah, like in the prequels, they're just spinning around and you know it's just all pretty and it's very flashy.
Dude, like the martyr of all that is the fucking fight on the Geonosis Coliseum with like literally a rainbow of fucking lightsabers fighting against just a bunch of random bugs.
I do want to see more of that. I like this one podcast that I follow keeps talking about how they would love to just see like an army of Jedi running at any like even if it's like just seeing the big like army of sabers. It's a cool spectacle.
It's cool. It's like a fun rave, but for death.
Exactly.
like a rave army.
Yeah, and I mean like the opening cinematic of the Old Republic. When
I was gonna say, you should just go to that because I'm like that fight when the Sith return for the Old Republic has some banging trailers, and here we are slipping into Star Wars again because we literally can't meet each other without doing it. But it's a good, interesting example of how action can be portrayed in media in general, and that's a good metaphor because, like, in the old trilogy, slow movements, more nuance, more choreographed. Well, the dude who choreographed it, the fights in the original trilogy. And God bless his soul, I can't fucking remember it. And I'm pretty sure he did the physical motions for Vader as well. He played Flynn in that old timey film. I'm not that old, I'm like 26, but like, God, do I need to remember this dude's name?
Yeah.
But he choreographed all the fighting in Lord of the Rings, and I became familiar with him. And like, he kind of described that sort of nature of action, like what kind of narrative you want to have with the fighting. And then like you go into the prequels, and it's all spectacle. It's all just like,
and I mean that's exactly like the path that Dragon Ball took.
Almost all the time, except for the Phantom Menace. Just to say that one last thing, that fight between Darth Maul.
It's awesome, but like there's no emotion in it literally until like the final bout after Qui-Gon dies.
I guess I can see that.
Like the whole thing is spectacle, and then when Qui-Gon dies,
it becomes emotional.
It becomes emotional, but it's still
at the cost of a character.
Yeah, and like it's still like there's still some spectacle to it.
Yeah,
but I'd more so take that as like Obi-Wan just kind of giving into rage for the moment because
there's an element of that.
There's no Jedi about the way he's fighting Darth Maul in that sequence. Like he is just all like overhand swings.
Back to Dragon Ball. Yeah. You were saying,
that's how I was correlating it because like Dragon Ball starts off in like these fights are very meaningful. The first fight is with his brother that he didn't know existed, and then the second one is the prince of the race that he didn't know that he was a part of.
Yeah,
and then by the end you just got Kid Buu just screaming open galaxy like dimensions and just pounding away at each other.
There's what do you think of like modern anime and like where it's going for? What's the most modern thing that you watched? Because like when I haven't watched, I mean, My Hero for both of us is probably the most current shonen that we've probably watched that kind of exemplifies action on a regular basis because it's a battle manga.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of talk like Miyazaki, like we'll talk about it, like just the general what they call post-millennial anime.
Yeah,
and why it's a hazard, like just to go into some more meta narratives like Miyazaki. Have you heard the infamous like anime was a mistake thing?
No.
Okay, well Miyazaki called anime as a mistake.
Huh.
And I'm not going to contextualize this in a very good way right now, but I can understand the sentiment of it, where it's like anime is being made for anime's sake is something that he's kind of saying. It's not drawing from any other source material other than anime that you've already seen. And then it becomes this very serialized, commercialized thing that's like has no artistic or intrinsic value. Is the kind of synopsis of that statement. And so moving forward, as we kind of enter this new age of people and animators in Japan that grew up with a very deep anime culture, not that they weren't in the like 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
There was definitely something that existed like in those Astro Boy days and stuff like that. But like we're definitely in like a very entrenched, we're in the meme of anime was prevalent when a lot of the current day animators were growing up.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't know, like I feel like modern animes seem to be in really good positions just because back when I was, growing up, like there was Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon were like the two things that you could watch if you wanted to watch anime. And, as it went, like as I got older, like I found a few other things that I really liked. Gundam Wing.
Yeah.
Hellsing, like I said.
Yeah.
And it just like there was a few things here and there, but the majority of it, like I could take or leave.
Yeah.
And nowadays there just seems to be a lot more stuff that is, hitting home. Like I said, I mean, Attack on Titan, they shot themselves in the foot when they decided to try to capitalize on everything with it and like not put out the second season for like 2 years, 3 years and instead do every kind of crossover they could. But like My Hero has been really good with giving you constant content. With Dragon Ball Super coming out and possibly coming back out next year, and with the movie coming at the end of the year, like
there's definitely a plethora of options. I just wonder about the quality control, because like there are things that are coming out, and again, now this is not to me to knock on these certain fan bases, but like I've seen footage of like fights from like Akame ga Kill or like Fate, like the Fate series, the Sword series. I forget which one of the Fates, because there are so many of them. But one of them that were on Netflix, the Fate Sword, it's like a Blade. It's a Blade heavy Blade heavy subtitle. I'm sorry I don't have it. This is how little I really recollect it. But the first fight was very flashy, animated, very hype. But I really didn't understand or have any emotional attachment to what had happened.
Yeah.
Again, this might be my fault. Maybe there's probably for the Fate series a precursor that I didn't read or watch.
Yeah.
For Akame ga Kill, maybe it's just not my cup of tea. But a lot of the fights that I experienced and watched, the action that was in them, they didn't have that connection. They were all spectacle, no substance. And there's a way to do more of a technical side to a fight than there is an emotional side of a fight. Because I feel like fights in JoJo are more charged in a technical sense than in an emotional sense. And that's not to its detriment, though.
Absolutely.
The writer understands that, and he kind of manipulates the stance and the power and the rules of his world to create a meaningful conflict that has tension and drama without a very intimate emotional contact between the two combatants.
Yeah, I mean, usually, like, if in JoJo's sake, it's usually not, it doesn't come down to the fight rarely.
Yeah.
Because it's either the enemy is vastly outclassing whichever, series of JoJo's, like JoJo and crew that you have, or you have somebody like Jotaro who, when it comes to like a raw fight, pretty much just steamrolls everybody up till Dio.
I didn't watch too much of Stardust Crusaders.
Yeah.
I told you that where I'm at. I'm like episode 7, 8, something like that. I'm getting through it. It's fantastic so far. I've watched
a ton of fun.
Everything before it is good too. But yeah, I can see that already happening.
I mean, even like when you're following Joseph's story with the Pillarmen and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like he's outclassed at every turn. It's
That's
usually
true.
like his ingenuity that ends up, pulling him through.
Joseph is one of the most fun ones.
Oh, absolutely.
Using his like weird thievy ways, like, trying to outsmart the oil slick tests and like, doing all these kind of silly things to that's a fun way to
like
to
he is specifically why I watch that show in Japanese. Like I switch back and forth between subs and dubs based on preference.
Is dub actually like is it quality?
I don't remember. Like I watched a few episodes and I didn't not like it.
Okay.
One of my friends, she watched the whole thing in dub, I'm pretty sure. And I told her, I was like, listen, you need to go back and rewatch it subbed. I was like, just because anytime, like every single time that Joseph breaks into like English, I start dying.
English is worth going to a sub for.
Exactly.
Especially like in Kuroko no Basuke. Oh boy. The main, one of the two main characters, Taiga, he supposedly like stayed in America, so he quote unquote knows English.
Yeah.
And like whenever he speaks English, and he busts that out fairly frequently, it's pretty darn funny to me because it's like what does he say? Let's see you become the number one prayer. And I'm like, oh my God, yes. I love that stuff. Like, and he's talking to like his other American friend, quote unquote. He's like, "Course," and I'm like, "Yeah," okay." Oh man.
Oh man, I just realized like you only being 7 episodes in, you haven't even seen Joseph's like fantastic English that happens later on.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he's got
so good.
some ball in English.
But
live for that shit.
Yeah, but the other thing that makes like action scenes really good, even if they don't have much substance, is the building of a scene.
Yeah,
like
the
in
setup.
Dragon Ball, like Super specifically, the whole universe of Power arc, like realistically, there wasn't much emotion. Like the most emotional thing was 17.
Yeah.
You know? Just because I didn't see that coming.
You keep going. I'll counter in a minute.
But then if you think about like like when he perfects Ultra Instinct, or even when he first gets Ultra Instinct, the way they design those scenes and the struggle that happens in each of them, where like everything goes silent, and the second time when he perfects it, you get Vegeta's speech, the clown god of destruction, is like, he's like, haha, like there's no way, like, and Vegeta just like stands up and he doesn't even look at him, and he's just like, you've seen Saiyans exceed their limits, break their limits this entire tournament. I guarantee you he is going to master this thing.
Yeah, it's true.
And, it's one of the first times you hear Vegeta actually cheer on Goku.
Yeah. He's kind of come around on that. And it is a cool saga. Like, Super, for all its faults, still has a lot of fun moments.
Absolutely.
The only good arc, really, is the Universe of Power arc.
I loved it.
In my opinion.
See, I also liked the tournament arcs, because I also love the
tournament arcs in general.
when you meet Universe 6.
Yeah.
Like that whole back and forth, because they weren't all necessarily just powerful, like you had the first like weird gummy bear dude who like just couldn't take a hit.
Yeah.
You literally couldn't hit him. And it was like super neat to, eventually Goku's like, oh, well, but if I just push you over and drag you out, then
I win.
You lose.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun ingenuity in Dragon Ball. I mean, they've said so much time, but that's like a part of the charm.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about action, and we're probably going to start wrapping up soon. Again, real quickly, actually, before I forget, I wasn't emotionally turned when 17 died because they didn't show it, so I know it didn't. I know it didn't happen. Plus, his light didn't go out. Plus, like nothing happened. Like he didn't show up on the bench. So
his light did go out.
Did it go out?
Yeah.
I forgot that part. Must have missed it, but I just assumed he was alive the whole time. So like I never felt the surprise when he showed back up. I'm like,
yeah, Zeno hit the button that deactivated him. So like, which really like. Threw me off then when he's cheating. Won.
He's colluding. He's colluding with Universe 7.
And they said he didn't show up on the bench because he died. That was the whole thing about it, was the fact that like like, oh, he died. That's why he didn't show up on the bench.
Gotcha.
And like the boards weren't automatic, so that was just Zeno. I mean, I don't know how being that knows all, sees all, can make a mistake like that. But they do just seem to be children. So
I was thinking about the non-battle anime though. Like I'm gonna do a whole gib on sport anime, but just non-battle anime. I'm just gonna call them in general to blanket a couple other options in there, like Food Wars or Yu-Gi-Oh, or like Hikaru no Go, or like Kuroko no Basket, like I mentioned, or even like other ones like Prince of Tennis and whatnot. Like they have elements of action and combat, but not real combat. We're not fighting each other. But the thing is, you mentioned you like tournament arcs. I love tournament arcs, and sports anime are like 80% tournament arcs, which is why I'm like, it's half the reason why I watch them. It's they're like one of the purest forms of shonen. Just to kind of do a miniature glib here on sports anime, and it's like because they all focus around those themes of determination and growing and power rankings and power ceilings, and it's interesting to see it interpreted there. We were talking about visual metaphors like steam, like you could see that with like in Ippo, like in the boxing anime, where like when he does the Dempsey roll, the steam and jet engine kind of emotion and like visual metaphor starts to kind of peel off him when he's getting ready to start spinning and starts doing the Dempsey roll. Not spinning, but weaving, excuse me.
Yeah.
But like the king of visual metaphors is Prince of Tennis and Ice Shield 21 for sure. Prince of Tennis being more infamous with like the film doing stuff like to convey what you're feeling in this battle of tennis. Like there's stuff like Tezuka, the captain of the team, like sucking up galaxies and destroying the dinosaurs. Like it's fantastic, and it's the way that you can communicate that the emotionality of a fight.
Yeah,
that can be pretty unique in anime, and it can vary between like mediums that even you wouldn't think battling. Like you kind of feel the same beats and drama in like Yu-Gi-Oh that you could feel in Dragon Ball. Yet they are not fighting, but they are putting cards down on very expensive hologram projectors. So yeah, so there's a lot of different ways that action is portrayed, battles are portrayed, fights are interpreted and communicated, and I feel like that's just a really cool and unique aspect in anime. And I feel like it's a medium that takes the chances to explore these things. I wouldn't say that film or novels aren't as exploratory, but I mean, just in my present day life, I don't see as many interesting ideas being thrown at the wall, you know?
Well, what happened? I mean, the thing is, like with anime, like you get unique motion of characters and stuff like that. Like there's like it's the way that things move is stuff that like you can't do in real life. I mean, some of the visual effects and stuff like that now they can probably achieve stuff like when All Might did the United States of Smash and how like it was like kind of negativing out a lot of
the motion in My Hero is fantastic. It reminds me of Naruto, and I'll describe why in a second, but like the most intense scenes, like the Todoroki fight, where like he's getting like where they're both flying at each other, so like what's the one part where they're not just flicking and ice waving, where he is enveloped in flame when he's getting ready to shoot that shit, and then when Deku's flying at him, like flying through the ice, and he's getting ready to like throw that actual punch finally. That shit looks crazy. In Naruto, like so many of the fights, I don't know how deeply entrenched you've ever been in Shippuden, and it's okay, but like it's a fantastic style. Whoever the animator is on that, who was the key animator for Naruto Shippuden fights, he's on another level. Like a lot of the best fights, like both Naruto and Sasuke, both times, the Kakashi versus Obito fight, they're super good, and like they have this weird. Everyone says like it switches to another style. Well, it's like the animation style now for like a very intense fight, and like they're blurred and like these very super unanatomically correct depictions, but like it kind of really conveys the energy and like the visceral nature of the fight in ways that I feel like not all of them, like not other mediums can. Like you can read a comic, but it's static. You can watch a film, but it's like green screen, and it's very unlikely that you're going to get something with the fluidity of anime.
And the thing is, like in film, you can tell, like there's a difference. Like you can tell something like Avengers: Infinity War, right?
Yeah,
love the movie. It's my favorite movie.
You watch that shit like 10 plus times.
I saw it like I think I ended up seeing it 4 times in theaters.
Oh, okay.
And ever since I got it on home video, I think I watched it 3 more times, and I've been meaning. I haven't watched it again because I want to sit down and watch it with director's commentary, which means I want to sit down and actually watch it.
Some Russo brothers action.
I've heard it's phenomenal, like the commentary, because it's not just the Russos, but it's also I forget the 2 guys who wrote it. So, but it's the directors and the writers.
Oh, that's cool.
All doing the commentary.
Nice.
So you hear like all sorts of levels of detail.
Yeah.
But like you have something like that where it's a lot of like choreographed but not real combat, right?
Yeah.
And then you go watch something like John Wick, and the action sequences in John Wick look totally different because it's really like happening.
Real,
you know?
yeah.
Keanu has done tons of training and knows how to throw people around.
Yeah.
You know, to really make the like I was saying, the motion of that look natural.
Mm-hmm. There's the difference between the two. Yeah, something that's exaggerated and not. Like you go and you watch like something like Infinity War, where like you get Thor flying in, shooting lightning, like smashing down, like hype moments like that. And then you have something that's really grounded and subdued, like John Wick. And you can have that paradigm in anime too.
Yeah.
The one comparison I wanted to make, and maybe even make a full podcast out of, was between Hane Bado, which is a really recent anime about badminton. It's 13 episodes, very concise, extremely well animated, versus the king of visual metaphors, Prince of Tennis. You know, because they're similar sports, but the way they approach the sport anime is so different. It's between like way opposite ends of the spectrum as far as how they want to handle the actual sporting event, like the actual battles that they have. Because you see in Prince of Tennis, there are some matches where dudes are getting railed, and like I mean railed as in like the ball hits them, they fly into the fence, they get bedded into the fence. The move is called Bloody Cross, and dude starts bleeding. There are things where like dudes are literally getting broken arms, like it's crazy. And like you see like icicles and all these other sort of interesting imageries, like and then Hane Bado is very, very realistic, very grounded, super well animated and choreographed badminton matches where you see every movement, and it's like very meticulous, it's very anatomically correct, it's very fun to watch, and it kind of gives you that very grounded nature and feeling, and in the way that both of them approach it gives it that whole different perspective of one wants you to feel an interpretation of the idea of what it is to be like a tennis player, what a twist serve or like a serve of that magnitude could be. The other one gives you just a very raw representation of what it looks like, and then you kind of have a more static image of it.
I mean, if you want a great example of an anime that has like the two different styles of what you can get in action, you can look at One Punch.
Oh, love it.
Because One Punch, literally, like, every character but Saitama, like, whenever they get in a fight, it's all super dramatized, tons of, like, visualization changes. And then Saitama just shows up, and it's just like, oh, well.
You know, by episode 2, like, it's the gag. Like,
it's so funny, though, because, I mean, because the second season didn't come, like, fast at all. Like, I'm up to date on the manga. And you wouldn't think that gag wouldn't not get old. Funny, you know, like, I'm at whatever chapter they're at now, like right now, it's actually focusing on a lot of the S-class heroes. But you would think eventually
it gets old.
But the thing is, every single time you go into it, you keep thinking, wait, this is gonna be the one. This is the one that's actually gonna
We're all the rat that like still keeps going after the cheese,
exactly.
despite being shocked 100 times. It's like it doesn't matter,
and it's because they do such a good job of like with all the other characters showing you the struggle, showing you how strong these characters are.
Yeah.
And then Saitama's like, oh, whoops, I killed it.
Yeah. Oh man, One Punch! I can't wait for season 2.
Yeah.
Well, we're actually. It looks like we're already pretty deep into our recording. Like we're right around where I thought we'd be time-wise. So I think we'll wrap it up here.
Sounds good.
I think we kind of gabbed on long enough about what we like in action, in anime, the different aspects of it. So I still don't have a sign-off. So this is Brando from the Otaku Remix Podcast. I'll see you next time. Peace.